Will you only feel bad if it turns out? Okay. Hey everybody, I'm gonna keep admitting people as we go.
Okay. All right. So good.
Thanks for joining us to our monthly KW Mastermind. Super excited about today's group over here. We're gonna talk about working with buyers in different aspects. I'm gonna ask some questions, and our speakers, producers will share, elaborate, maybe gonna interact between them as well. So once again, a fun group today of amazing people, great agents, starting with Wendy Rich-Soto out of the South Bay office. We have Jen Castillo out of the LA Harbor office, and we have Alan Rosenberg out of the Calabasas office. Hey everybody, good to have you.
Hey, Meny. How you doing?
Good, good. So
Great.
let's start with, I'm just looking at my screen. Wendy, start with you. Just, give us a, quick background, about yourself, so people, whoever's going to join us, will get a sense of who you are, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, I'm trying to find the screen where you are. It left me.
Oh, I'm right over here.
Okay. Well, my name is Wendy Rich-Soto. I'm in the South Bay office. I've been a realtor for 20 years, been a team leader twice, once in Long Beach and once in the City of Industry. And I run a small team at the South Bay office. So I have 2 other buyers agents that work with me.
Awesome. Thanks, Wendy. Good to have you. Thanks for taking the time. And Jane, LA Harbor, good to have you.
Thanks. So I'm Jane Castillo from LA Harbor. I'm a solo agent. I've been in the business for 4 years. I'm on the ALC, and I'm also coaching 2 new realtors as well. And yeah.
Awesome. Good to have you as well, and representing the LA Harbor area. Mr. Rosenberg.
Hey, I'm Alan Rosenberg. I've been a real estate agent for a little over 30 years. Been at Keller Williams about 5. I'm a solo act. I do it all myself. ALC, a mentor, that kind of stuff. And thanks for inviting me.
You bet. 5 years, huh? Time flies.
Yeah, a couple of years.
Great. So here's the first question, and as you know, it's been interesting last year and a half or so, right? Since the pandemic, and definitely transitioned into a seller's market in most, in fact, almost all areas. So it was somewhat of a challenging kind of times for buyers, at least the past, let's say maybe 6 months or so, maybe a bit longer. First of all, we'd love to hear from you about, do you work with buyers? What's your approach about it? Usually, do you keep a pipeline of buyers part of your business? Just share, some kind of insight. Open mic.
Okay, well, I'll start. This year, as in most years, for me, I'm about 50-50 split. It switches around a little bit, but this year that's pretty much been the setup for me. Majority of my buyers in the past, other than the last year or so, I've gotten a lot of them from open houses, and I get a lot of referrals from previous clients since I've been in this business a long time. I get like that. In fact, the other day, I actually just closed on a deal where I was working for a guy. This guy called me up, and he wanted me to help his son purchase a house. And I sold him his house basically about 25 years ago. So they still come around, and but it's pretty much 50-50. And I try to keep in touch with a lot of old buyers and sellers who have purchased. And I've been kind of an interesting thing too for me is I'm not really a condo seller, but it seems that when I sell a condo, I usually sell about 5 or 6 condos in the same complex. Just kind of works out that way.
Yeah, and we're gonna touch on that as well, market share in a specific area, right? Which is an opportunity to transition from a buyer's agent to a listing agent. So that's another kind of cool take on that, coming from Rosenberg, the king of Sherman Oaks. Jane, what about you?
Well, I've been mostly heavy on the buyer side. I do first-time buyer workshops. I used to do them in person, but now they're online. So I do first-time buyer webinars. So I do get clients from that, and then referrals from the clients that I have. So it has been buyer heavy. And after that, I do a buyer's consultation with them, and sometimes I have the lender with me. So I really like to educate my buyers when we sit down in a consultation, because I used to be a teacher. So I always tell them, I have a very educational approach as to how I deal with buyers. And sometimes I even draw pictures to help them understand the contract, and they seem to really enjoy that, because I'm also an artist, so it's just kind of natural for me to draw pictures and explain things with them. And so they appreciate that, because they feel like they really understand with the pictures and stuff. So yeah, I'm not sure if I answered everything, but yeah, mostly buyers in my consultations and webinars.
No, that's awesome. That's great insight for sure. Thank you, Jane. Wendy.
Because it's been so crazy this last couple of years, every time I work with buyer clients, which this year has been a pinnacle year for me, because I have switched. I've become more seller heavy than buyer after all this time. I have only been in LA for 13 of the 20 years, but still, it took a while to get it kind of to switch to the opposite direction. But with buyers, it's now just purely strategy. It's like you get together with them, you're building your trust and rapport with them, getting into relationship, because that has to be first. And then after that, educating them on the market that we have at the moment, and to strategize as to how they're going to be successful to buy something, because it's so ridiculously competitive. But it is changing, and I already have felt it for like a few weeks, and I'm seeing it with even the closed sales. I'm starting to see more properties close below ask or at ask and stay on the market longer. So I think that's a good thing for buyers now, finally. Can't hear you.
Sorry, I said, thanks, Wendy, for sharing again. And I said, Jane, did you want to add something? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too. I just got into escrow, and we were the only offer on the table. And there's another one that I may get into escrow tomorrow with, same thing. It would be the only offer on the table, and it would be below asking. So I am seeing it soften down, and prices will reduce too.
Yeah, well, that's definitely encouraging for sure. So here's a question, right? You guys kind of touched it a little bit. What is your strategy? And it's okay if you're going to talk only about today's strategy, because it's all about the evolution of the market and how we do business. Something's always going to be the same. Some things will, you're going to adjust based on experience and once again the market. But how do you, what is your approach today to work with buyers, right? Are you casual about it? Are you very strategic about it? What's the game plan?
Well, for me, obviously it depends on how I've gotten that buyer. Is this somebody who is a referral, or is this just a straight pickup, somebody I met at the supermarket? I don't know. It all depends on where they come from. I usually have a pretty early conversation with them about saying, and kind of apologize. I say, listen, I don't know what your background is in real estate, so I'm going to start kind of at the very beginning. And if I'm going too low, let me know. But most people say, no, we really want to hear it all. And just kind of the whole explanation of what all the things are going to be, kind of we're going to go through, from talking about what a lender's going to be doing for them, what we're looking for them, how we're going to go about searching for them. And if we find what they're looking for, how we're going to go about making an offer, And then we're going to talk about, we get a little bit, when we start this, we talk a little bit about escrow, but I kind of leave that. I said, listen, we're going to talk more about escrow, but let's see if we can get into a deal, get started. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go forward in this. And we talk about, you know, all the important parts of it and the strategies about it. But for me, a lot of it has to do with keeping in touch with the buyer, which is basically, I'm sure most everybody uses some kind of a matrix system through their MLS to get an everyday new listings to them, checking that out, looking at it myself, having a conversation every couple of days with them, and keeping them engaged, not only about looking for properties, but with me and me asking them questions and responding to their questions.
Awesome, yeah. Jane, Wendy?
Do we both unmute at the same time? Go ahead, Jane.
Well, I just wanted to echo what Ellen said. I mean, it's essentially what I do too, but I also look at opportunities for say the properties that have been on hold for a while. I'll call the agent, see what's going on there to hopefully find an opportunity. And sometimes some of the ones that have been on the market a little longer, sometimes there's nothing wrong with them, but you know, I'm the only one that called and to find out what the situation was and made it work. Those going the extra mile and making those phone calls to the listing agents to see what the situation is. And you'd be surprised how many phone calls they don't get and how many offers I get accepted just because I'm the one that called and figured it out and got it in escrow before anybody else figured it out later. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think I was just going to say that the first thing that I tell people, at least right now, is that we need to understand strategy. We need to talk about the contingencies in the contract. We need to talk about reducing timeframes. We need a strong lender that's going to be right there, that's going to be the one that calls the agent, the listing agent, to sing the praises of the buyer, to get them to trust and believe that we can actually close. If we have to remove appraisal contingency, then they need to be aware that they need to have capital aside from their down payment and closing costs, and do they really have it? So we have to talk about all of that and make sure they don't spend any money or close any accounts or do any of that stuff while we're looking. But I just had an experience, you know, kind of like what Jane is saying. I had a client I was working with for 4.5 months. It was like I just wanted to shoot myself because it was just taking forever. And so I saw this house in the area that they wanted, and it was sitting there for 34 days, and it looked really good in the pictures. And I'm like, why is this still sitting here? So I contacted the listing agent and I said, do you have offers on the property? He goes, we did at the beginning, but the seller wasn't motivated. She got 2 offers over asking. She didn't take it. Now she's really motivated. And I said, okay, we want to see it. So we went over there and saw it. It was perfect. It was exactly what they wanted. And we wrote them an offer at asking and got it in this market.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
So that just happened right now. The Taper Elementary area. So, I mean, I think that the market is shifting and people are so busy looking at new inventory that they're not looking at what else is out there. And just because a house has been sitting, it doesn't mean, like Jane said, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with it. It just means something happened at the beginning, or they were overpriced at the beginning or something like that. And the house is getting a bad reputation for that, but there's probably nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. And if you can believe it, I have had offers accepted without removing any contingencies, just doing the regular normal offer. So I've seen that come back too. Yeah,
exactly.
And for me, unfortunately, one of my key components of my buyers, writing love letters, I got to be honest, it's really hurt me because that was a pretty powerful thing for me to do. And I've won many deals over a lot of years with my love letters and with my clients writing them and me going through it. But I will tell you, for me, I not only work with my buyers, I really try to work really heavily with the listing agent. I call them, I keep in touch with them. I keep a very, I kind of joke around with people, whether people like that or not, I'm sorry, but that's my personality. And I try to keep it on a kind of a light note, especially at the beginning. And I've gotten more than a few deals, maybe through just kind of keeping it light. They say, well, we kind of like you and we like your client. So we'd like to see what you can do and how we can make this work, more than a few times. So, I think that listing agents want a smooth deal. They want it smooth for their client. They want to make sure the money's there. They want to make sure there's not a bunch of problems in the physical inspection. We can't always, we can't control everything, but man, when you work all that stuff out up front, it goes really smoothly. And like Wendy was saying about talking to the lender and having the lender call, I'm a big believer of that too. So we kind of work the whole thing. Everybody calls. So it kind of makes the listing agent feel a little bit more comfortable, makes their clients feel more comfortable. We're really engaged. It works a lot.
Yeah. Good
I'd
stuff.
like to piggyback on what Alan said too. I have had offers accepted simply because I got along very well with the listing agent up front and they wanted to work with me. They said, you know what? I don't want to work with anybody else. You're really professional. I like you. Let's work together. And so just the likability and, being a team player with the listing agent up front really goes a long way. And even at the end of the transaction, because I've actually made friends with listing agents that I'm still in touch with now, and sending them that thank you card as well at the end, or even with a gift card in the thank you card too, because you never know, they might have another listing later on and you have a buyer for, and because you've done a really good job on this transaction, they remember that and they want to get an escrow with you again. That's happened to me too. So I'm able to call them up like, hey, do you have anything coming up? And, that sort of thing. And they know me, they know the level of my professionalism, so they'll prefer me. And so I've had that happen before too, that don't discount the quality of the relationship with the listing agent. Definitely.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about that too. I think that it's really the other relationship that you need to build. And so that's kind of like a pipeline for us in a sense, because if we have relationships with agents that list a lot of property and they know and trust us, then we have an opportunity to really serve our clients at a higher level because we have these connections and they do matter. I mean, yeah, you don't always win the deal, but I think that it is extremely helpful and it helps your chances considerably if you've already had a successful transaction and they already know who you are.
Wendy, also, if you don't mind, just one more thing here, Manny, too. You know how many times at the end of a deal, you thank everybody on Facebook and stuff. Many times, especially if it's been a pretty good transaction, I thank the listing agent. And you'd be surprised how many listing agents contact me back after I've thanked them for their professionalism and the way they've handled their client and stuff like that. Get a lot of people callbacks, a lot of things about information about new properties coming onto the market prior to hitting the market. Do you have somebody for this? And that's been very helpful. And here's the other kind of a weird thing too. For me, if I'm kind of lacking a listing and I want to do an open house, you'd be surprised how many of these agents call me to hold their open houses for them.
Sorry.
This is all golden information for sure. It's just amazing. Whoever's watching us right now, right, and thinking about how can I build my business? How can I increase my? It's right over here in front of you, guys. Thanks for joining. There's a few, notes I made in my head. I want to comment on a few things. Number one, ask yourself, right? You guys, whoever is watching us right now, who's your preferred realtor? Right? When you think about someone else, of preferred, like whatever vendor it is, right? Real estate, non-real estate, you got at least one person who is, as an agent, who is the preferred realtor. And how many people out there, agents, right, will consider you as the preferred realtor? Like, you guys mentioned on our panelists today, right? Alan, I'm calling this person, that person, and they're gonna call me if they need like an open house sitting or they have a packet, etc. So it's what we call professionalism, courtesy, right? So to give other people a shout out. So that's huge. And you guys are amazing by bringing this up and sharing this, because it's like really the secret sauce behind the industry of like how we really go about doing business, right?
Absolutely.
That's great. What else? Trying to squeeze you.
I don't know. For me, I gotta tell you, it really is about remembering and working. You know, I've been in this a long time. I know that not everybody's has the experience or the luckiness of being in the real estate business for so long. But recently, I just got a great deal with someone we were really having a hard time, especially about a couple of months ago when the market still was extremely hard. And I saw one of the clients that I was going to be showing their property. And this woman and I had worked together 30 years ago at Coldwell Banker. And I reached out to her and she goes, "Oh, Alan, I haven't spoken to you in so long." And so I talked to her a long time and she goes, "Oh, I'd love to do a deal with you." And our deal wasn't always the best. She had a better buyer in the fact that it was a lot more down and probably would have gone over what she wanted. And she told me what the seller wanted to do, and all on board, man. We worked together and it was such a smooth deal. It was unbelievable. She was like my associate, like working in my office. I was in her office, she was in mine, because we just really tried to make everything work out. And she did they'd redone this house and there were a few things to do. She came in, they had everything fixed, not one question on any of the things on her physical, did everything, no loan problems. It was magical, man. Great.
On point. And all of you guys mentioned that, how many times, even as a listing agent, right? The seller, it's the seller decision which offer they want to go with, but how many times they ask you, "Hey, what do you think?" Right? And they would ask you, "Do you know any of those agents we're about to go in escrow with as well?" Right? So that's definitely build that relationship is crucial. For sure.
The other thing I was going to mention is that you can't be afraid to really ask deep questions with the listing agent. There are going to be listing agents that are really weird and protective of whatever's going on, which I will never understand unless the seller has forbid you to tell somebody what's going on. You can be forthcoming. I don't get that. But at the same time, it's really about trying to, extract as much information as you can from them, whether they're above asking, how many offers they have, if they can share what kind of financing those offers are, if there's anything that's specific to the seller that they're really interested in or is important to them, whether it's a rent back or they want to keep their appliances or whatever. Something that caters to the needs of the seller is going to rise to the top of the pile, because you're trying to not just buy their home, but also accommodate them in whatever way they need to be accommodated at the time.
Yeah, you're a deal maker. You want to, make the deal happen so you get whatever information you can. On a side note, there was a question about the Alan's love letters. So it's a lingo to how you present or used to. You can still do it, but you have to ask permission first. But it's just a story about who the buyers are, right? Family of this and that. I think because of fair housing rules and whatever, they decided it's a somewhat sensitive, so they it's not customary right now to do it unless you can ask permission and the seller is okay of looking at those love letters. So you can still do it, just have to ask permission if you're on the buyer side or whatever, however that works.
Right.
Question for you about expectations, right? Sentient can be anything that you want to address or share, or in this specific market. Wendy, you mentioned the market is shifting, in some areas, some markets correct, some price point correct. But overall, how do you set the expectations with the buyers to begin with?
As far as me, it really depends on what they're looking at, because there's going to be more competition in certain things than there will be in others. But we really have to talk like we're playing a game. Like I'm like the coach and I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And this is why, right? So getting the buyer on board with understanding why we're going to do things a certain way and getting them kind of excited about participating. It is like a team thing with the lender and myself and the listing agent and the buyers. And then also setting expectations about inspections. And even though it's a first time buyer or whatever, you have to explain that, you know, if you see minor imperfections in the house or whatever, you can't just expect the seller is going to take care of those types of things. Don't nitpick it apart. If you're lucky enough to get into escrow on the property, be realistic about, you know, what's really important. I mean, if there's like a blocked sewer line, okay, but you know, if there's paint that's missing on a wall, that's something else. So try to keep yourself, you know, looking at what's important. Don't lose sight of the big picture. Because my buyers that just went into escrow, she had told me one time, she goes, well, I didn't really want to offer that much on that house because, you know, we had to do this to it and we had to do that to it. And I said, yeah, but see, here's the problem. You don't have a house. So why does it matter? If you haven't gotten a house and you're not in escrow, you're not fixing anything anyway. So it doesn't really matter. And in the meantime, you're still paying rent. So try to get people to think about what's really important and keep the big picture in mind, because it really does change their focus. And that's really important.
Yeah, the perspective, correct. Yeah.
Right. And definitely during the buyer's consultation, I do my best to paint the picture of what is ahead. And I ask lots of questions because I let them know that I want them to have a high level of certainty when we place an offer and what we can expect when we place an offer, that it may or may not be accepted. And it was really interesting because one of my first time buyers, she got an offer rejected. And it wasn't until she got it rejected, she said to me, you know, when you explained all of this during that consultation, I understood what you said. She said, you did a really good job of explaining because I really understood. She goes, but now that I've been through it, now I get what you're saying. And so that was really helpful for me to hear, because it took for her to actually experience it and live it, even though she understood it up here, but she didn't get to like embody it until that moment. That was very revealing to me, and how I can expect that of other buyers, no matter how much I explain this is a quick paced market. And I try to troubleshoot stuff ahead of time by asking questions and making sure that they have all of their questions answered, because that avoids things down the line. You don't want to have problems come up because you skipped a step in your consultation that you could have covered this. So now it's come up and you realize, oh, I skipped a step. Now I have to backtrack. I want to get everything done first and set that foundation so that everything goes smoothly, as smoothly as possible later on down the line. So
I think a big part of it also too, for me, the expectations of what they want, but what their wants are, what their needs are, what their must-haves are. I've talked to many people about, you know, we really want a swimming pool, and if we don't have a swimming pool, we aren't going to do it. And for an example, I say to them a lot, especially when I'm sending in properties through the matrix, I said, what would you do if the perfect house came out in the perfect neighborhood and it didn't have a pool, and you didn't take a look at it and it sold? Would you be okay with that? And there's usually a moment of silence. And they say, well, we probably we might buy it and put our own pool. I said, so let's be a little bit more open to what our thought processes are about what it is. Is that a want or a need or a must have? So if it's a must have, you've got to have a pool no matter what, and it's got to be built, we've got to come with the pool. Okay, that's okay. But just remember, we're going to eliminate a lot of properties that might meet your needs for the house in the area, but we're not going to look at them because it doesn't have a pool. And I want to make sure you understand that. And we talk about that in locations or school districts and a lot of different things about what the house may have. You know, I want a 4-bedroom house, but I would consider a 3-bedroom house or whatever it exacts are, because maybe they'll push for something that they really they don't necessarily want it. But I try to tell a lot of them, especially newer buyers, you know, is this the house you think you're going to live in for the rest of your life? Because this is probably your first house. there's probably going to be more. Not guaranteed, but most likely you're going to be changing homes down the road. And in that next house, when we're moving to the next one, when I'm selling you the next one, let's see if we can get all that. But let's get in, let's get started. Let's see what life is owning a house or owning a condo. It kind of, once they get into it, you know, they kind of like, we talk about this a lot of times afterwards going, yeah, you know, I really didn't need that room. I wanted it, but maybe the next one. I said, okay, you know.
It's very smart. Take them to the journey of educating them, but also a big factor in any kind of sales part, the psychology is fear of loss, right? You could have lose an opportunity if ... So it's definitely the right way to approach while educating them as well, right?
Well, it seems to work for me at least. I mean, I don't know. And I always tell them, look, if that's the house and it doesn't have the pool, your choice to not go or not to buy it, that's 100% on you. But at least you now have the opportunity to see it. And now you get to make your choice. If you don't, that's okay. That's fine. But now you at least saw it.
Wendy, yeah, you want to add something?
I was just gonna say that, you know, I think that maybe we don't focus on it enough, but this working with buyers is an investment of time. And sometimes it takes a while to get somebody into contract and close. You know, they come in and out of being your pipeline because you don't know how soon they're gonna do what they're gonna do. But sometimes, you know, agents get frustrated because they're like, oh, I don't want to keep writing offers for this client because they're just not realistic and whatever. But I think that it comes back to trust and relationship. And if you will play the game with them and let them make a couple of stupid offers, sorry, but you know, sometimes buyers do that, to get them to understand that you're not trying to be dishonest with them about how they should structure their offers. You want them to have the negative experience so they can understand that their idea or what their family member told them or whatever isn't going to work in the market that we have. And that, you know, markets do change no matter how many properties your mom and dad have bought. It doesn't matter. We're in the market we're in right now. And this is what it's going to take to be successful in getting you what you want. So that takes time to get a buyer to believe that. Because at first it might just be that you're just saying that to them and you just want them to spend more money because you want to check. But over time, they will grow to trust you if you allow them to make those errors and have the, you know, the negative consequence of not getting the property.
Yeah, well said. I mean, you know, you want to earn their trust and
Yes.
not making them feel,
That's exactly it.
yeah, not making them feel that.
That's exactly I was gonna say, Wendy, it's 100% right. And when they lose it, just like you were saying, Jane, they now start to trust what you're saying to them and your explanations of it. And now it kind of like takes hold. And now it's in their psyche a lot more about, hey, I really can trust them because they've been telling me the right things and my friends just don't get it.
Yeah, I let them know that my plan for them is to set them up for success. And that means with me telling them the truth. And I let them know you may not always want to hear the truth, but I will tell you the truth. And I will do that for your benefit because I want you to succeed. If you don't succeed, I don't succeed. And for me, at the end of all of this, it brings me a lot of joy to be able to hand over that key and see that I was part of making their dream come true. And that they have to trust me with that. And so sometimes when I have to deliver the news of like, we didn't get that offer accepted, you know, then they're like, oh, well, what could we have done? I said, well, they accepted an offer, you know, with this. And then they'll say, oh, you did tell us that. Yeah, I did. And so next time they listen to me, you know, so yeah, it does take that.
Yeah, it's the fine line between not getting them discouraged and not losing the trust, right? It's a process.
One other really good thing about it too, Jane, is that if you keep telling them that and they keep not listening to you, you can also say, and maybe you haven't had the fun of this because you've only been doing this a shorter time, but sometimes the best part of the whole deal is saying, you know, I don't think I'm the right agent for you.
Yeah.
Apparently what I'm trying to help you do, you don't want to go with that, or you don't think that I'm doing it. So why don't we, you know, maybe this is not the best situations for both of us.
And I was
Yeah,
gonna,
you know, I have done that, and it's very empowering to do that, because I also feel like it's important for other agents to hear that it's okay not to take someone on if you're not a good match, and you know it's gonna not be good for either one of you. And I have let people go and say, hey, you know, you don't seem to be comfortable with what I'm sharing, and you know, I don't like to work with people that aren't comfortable with me. And we've parted ways. So that's fine with me.
I was about to ask that you guys one step ahead, which is awesome. Did you ever let a buyer go,
Mhm.
right? And you know, you don't have to share too much, you know, crazy details, but if you did, what was the deciding factor so agents on the call will learn from it, right? From your experience.
Well, for me, it was someone who was being incredibly demanding and asking things that I've never had to do for other clients. It was ridiculous. So it's someone who acted as if, I don't know, like I had to do so much, almost like slave like. And I thought, oh my gosh, like what are you no. And then, and you know, and he wouldn't put a mask on, he wouldn't put gloves on, didn't want to sanitize, you know, use hand sanitizer or anything like that. And I thought, well, okay, that's gonna be tough. And you know, and I started to talk to him about this particular home, and I think he just wasn't, I think he had mental wellness issues, because suddenly out of nowhere he said, you know, I'm not comfortable with you. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, that's fair. I'm not comfortable with you either. So okay, I think that's good that we not work together, because yeah, it was weird. So but yeah, but it was more like he felt like just because he had chosen me as an agent that I had to like then do every single thing he wanted me to do. And it's just like, no, there's boundaries. So don't be afraid to let someone go if you're not comfortable.
And never be afraid to let someone go, because you can go and go and go with somebody and be uncomfortable for a long extended period of time. And then they'll turn around and buy something from somebody else. And you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that after I just spent, you know, 2 months with you or whatever. But also in like kind of an extreme way, but still, I think it's something that we all need to constantly think about is this is a litigious society. People want to sue people all the time. And if you're getting negative vibes from someone where you feel like they think that you're dishonest or something like that, and they're looking for an excuse to have a problem, it's time to let them go, because this is our career. We don't want to lose our license. We don't want any black marks on our license just because somebody didn't like something that we said or did, and it didn't go in line with what their thinking was at the time, even if they're wrong. There's still people out there that will pursue you and try to hurt you and hurt your business as a result. It's better to cut them loose early.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
I used to think, and I'm not really making a joke about this, but I used to think that mental illness with clients, and I don't know if that's, if they really were mentally ill, but they sure did seem like they were like half in and half out. I don't know whether it was that or drinking problems or whatever. I've closed deals with people like that before too. So it's not to say that I won't work with you, but it's like the idea, Jane, of being, and I don't know the word, I don't know like if I like the word slave, but having people call you at really weird hours and demanding things of you to do certain things, or when they ask you something and you send out a text or an email and then demanding that you get an answer right away when it's an impossibility. The person's out of town or something, and they want it on their time always to be kowtowed to, which is okay. I don't mind working extra for you, but there's only certain things I can do. I can't force a processor to move faster on your loan than you're on the pile. You're right in there, just like everybody else. We're trying to move you along, but we need to be done sooner than everybody. So you can only do certain things. And if it continues along that line, it's like, maybe this is not the right thing for all of us. And that's a good feeling sometimes to say. And by the way, after it's over, you know what? You feel so much better, because it's just like all this angst and problems you had now have dissipated. They're gone. And now the people you're working with, everybody seems so much nicer, and you feel much better about it. And it's so much easier to work without having this constant barrage of ridiculousness on your shoulders and banging on your door, calling you at crazy hours. It's so much better.
Yeah, absolutely, because that stuff keeps you up at night, and it's just really not. It's not worth that.
Absolutely.
What were you saying, Wendy? Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think you can't really probably stress enough to your client how important the lender relationship is in the deal. So many times you have a lender that's just, they're working for a big box, whatever call center or something like Loan Depot, let's say, for instance. My experience with Loan Depot lenders is that they haven't been doing it very long. They're very, very limited on what programs they have and what they're able to do. They're not easy to reach. A lot of them are not even in this area code. And it's very difficult to get the offer accepted because the listing agent can't get a hold of them to verify what you've said that the buyer can do. So sometimes you really have to have hard conversations with your buyers about, this may not be the best lending situation for you. There might be better things out there for you that you should think about. And I think those conversations come after you've built relationship with the buyer. But in this market, it's extremely, extremely important to have a very strong lender that's willing to jump through hoops for you and your buyer in order to make the deal come together. I cannot stress that enough, because we've had transactions happen that probably shouldn't have happened. My daughter Ashley's on my team, and she did a deal out in Lakewood, and I think that property had 20 offers on it. And it was because our lender hopped on the phone with that listing agent and made him feel secure. We got that transaction. We shouldn't have even gotten that deal, but we did, because we were very last minute with our offer.
Yeah. And by the way, Ashley says, "Hi, Mom, you look great. Proud of you. XOXOXO." So,
love you too.
Ashley, how do I look? No, I'm just kidding.
You look great.
Off the chat. Two things to piggyback on what you guys said. Number one, I'm right now about to finish my, I'm doing the SCE designation. It's at home with diversity. Super powerful designation. It actually costs something, but it's totally worth the $99 or whatever. And it's teaching you about how to work with, diversified, clientele, etc. Because it's interesting to learn about other cultures, how they go about things, right? But to put aside, which is a big no-no, right? To work with abusive people in life and in business for sure. And thank you guys for bringing this up and, sharing your experience. Sometimes if you're gonna work with someone that you're not sure, what they're talking about or their behavior or their accent or whatever, but if it doesn't feel like a good fit, right? Whoever's on the call watching us, you can always introduce them to your team member, buyer specialist, business partner, or whatever, share the commission while refer the client because it's not a good fit. I mean, please don't refer abusive buyer to someone else, right? You know what I mean by saying that. So that's another way to, get the
Personality types.
Yeah.
right? Different personality types work for different personality types. Maybe you don't possess that same thing that is going to make them feel at ease that somebody else might.
Yes. So if the match is not a good match because it's like it just doesn't feel like it is, regardless to that, like without any negativity, then think about, okay, how can I still make it work, right? And that's why we're all here together and sharing and talking, and we can refer business in different areas. Another question. Alan, you want to add something?
No, just basically, I can't even tell you how many clients that I know for 25, 30 years who have become personal friends, who I can just pick up the phone and have a conversation with, have nothing to do with what we do for a business, but just have a nice conversation about life or what their kids are doing or what they're up to or their latest vacation, because I saw it on Facebook. I love that. I got to be honest. That's one of my big wins for me. I dig it. I really do.
Yeah, well, it's a relationship-based business, so that's it's all about that. Jane?
I wanted to add to that because I sold a property to a very young couple, and immediately after they moved in, they discovered she was pregnant. So it was 11 o'clock at night. Months later, 11 o'clock at night, I get a text with the newborn baby's picture. They were at the hospital and they text me, the realtor, a picture of their newborn. I was just so filled with joy for that. I thought of all the people that they're announcing this to, they think of me to do that, Yeah, and they know that they can reach me at any time of day or night. And yeah, they share their wins with me, and it's just so rewarding.
Yeah, I can resonate with that as well, because between the offices, I get a lot of same texts with like, here's my new baby, right? Some of them like fresh out of the oven. And it makes you feel like it's family, right? It makes you proud of that relationship and what you also put in that, effort to build that kind of rapport. In relation to that, and Alan, you mentioned it earlier, we're going to finish with that, is how do you work with the buyer, could be like a very fast, short-term experience, can be many months. I heard about, people that worked years with buyers until they found the right property. Once they buy the house, close the deal, then they became a homeowner or a potential future, seller, what have you. How do you maintain that relationship? Or you're like, oh, goodbye, thank you, see you.
I think over the years, like the last few years, I've gotten a lot better at follow-up, because I think, I don't know, that at the beginning I thought, oh, okay, we're done. They're probably not going to want to deal with me or whatever. The most eye-opening experience was I had a client appreciation party right before COVID hit. It was Valentine's Day of last year. And I invited, I think like 100 people. And I had the pizza truck come and make personal pizzas for all the people that came. And I ended up with 40 of my clients at my house. And I was so shocked because I'm like, who wants to hang out with their realtor that they bought a house from 5 years ago or whatever? But it was amazing how many people were like sad that they couldn't make the party. And then all the ones that came had such a good time and they were so happy to be here. It just goes to show you that people want to keep the relationship going. And if they really like you, then they're going to want to hear from you, and you shouldn't just stay away from them. I mean, we have, I think, that weird mindset of, oh, the deal's done. I better not bother them or something. But I think they like hearing from you because then they know that you still think of them and that, they're still important to you, even though you already closed the deal.
Yeah, well said. Make it 41 next time. I'm down. I'll join you.
Okay.
Well, I believe that's true. I mean, I love keeping in touch with a lot of my clients. Some of my clients, I really don't want to have a conversation with afterwards. I mean, let's be realistic. The
Yes.
truth is, not every buyer was the best solution. I mean, I work really hard to make sure my clients get the best possible deal that they can get monetarily and everything else about it. But at the end of the day, we weren't meshing very well. And but you never know. Sometimes those come back around too, and you get weird referrals from people that goes, somebody you thought that it really wasn't working, you get a call from somebody who says, well, this person referred you to me. And it's like,
What?
why? It's like, what happened? I don't even really, I hardly remember them. And I remember I didn't really get along with them. And they've thought enough about what I did for them, even though we didn't do it. I worked on a really tough divorce case one time. And the guy and I just were like loggerheads constantly because it was all coming out of his money. And I guess 15 years later, this was like 2 years ago, I get a call and his mom's selling her house. She's in her 90s and they're 4 brothers. And he won over them and he said, I want you to use Alan. And it was like, really? It was, hey, we sold it and they were all very happy. So it was kind of weird, man, but these things happen.
But you see, that's also, it's also a testimonial, right? When you said it, Alan said it as well, to how you've been perceived by other people. You might think one way, but they may be looking at you as how professional this person was. How, on a side note, Alan takes easily 5-6% listings. He doesn't really, fast to drop his commission. So the person on the side will appreciate the, this person is a good negotiator, right? So you always have to think about how we're going to be perceived by the other side, by our demeanor, professionalism, right? Our carry ourselves, etc. So for sure. Last quick round. Anything else you guys wanna add? Appreciate your time on a Thursday.
Well, I just want to add that it's never too late to follow up with them. If you've let some months pass, it's still okay to call them. Christmas is always a great excuse to send them cards or do a little pop buys. I like to, for Christmas, if I can get to everybody, just leave something on their door. Like I did that during, this last Christmas. I just left something on their door, a little surprise gift, and none of them were expecting it. And they were just so touched that I did that during this difficult time. So I love to see people smile. So yeah, it's never too late to follow up with them.
Yeah, good point.
Well, Wendy, you had mentioned that you're pushing more toward listings these days. And I do a lot of listings or 50-50. And I got to be honest, many of the buyers become my sellers. I list their properties and then we buy again. We do the round all over again. Yeah. So it's, I want to stay friends with them and I enjoy that. But and realistically though, it's, I have them in my funnel that they just keep coming to the top. They go down to the bottom, we come back up to the top, we start all over again. And it's much easier to work on a relationship that you've already had some good rapport and these things have all been positive, and it's great to start already all about 75-80% of the way down the funnel as opposed to just putting them in the top. So yeah, I love working with the buyers and then selling their properties too, and it's doubly great.
Yeah, for sure. What was I just gonna say? I was gonna say something important. I got distracted by a text message. I'm sorry. I think that it's interesting though, and I really wanted to talk about this really quick. So the escrow I'm in right now was at a home inspection yesterday and the listing agent was there. And if anybody does any amount of deals, real estate community is pretty small. It's like everybody knows everybody or somebody's connected to somebody somehow. And the buyers and I and the listing agent were sitting there talking and he goes, oh, you guys live in Lomita. Like, what street do you live on? So they tell him. And he's like, you guys are getting my newsletter. And she's like, yeah, I love it. I look forward to it. I always get it and I always read what you have to say and, upcoming events and this, yeah, it's so great. And he's just like looking at them and they don't get it. And so here's the thing about marketing and the way that we connect with people. They had no skin in the game with this guy. They look forward to this piece of paper he left on their porch. I'm not saying that people shouldn't do newsletters at all, but I am saying you should follow up with actual communication with people, meaning go to their door. If you're going to give them a monthly newsletter, then you should get to know them. You should go to their door and knock on it and talk to them and have a conversation. So when they are ready to do something, you're the person that they call. Otherwise, they'll just use your newsletter for information.
Yes, on point. You know, it's funny, this morning at the 8 o'clock session, the producers mindset session, we were talking about the just a quick piece of the 15 invaluable laws of personal growth. We're gonna have, that's this month's book club. We're gonna have it physically at the South Bay office on the 31st of the month at I think 5 p.m. And it talks really about, you know, you can say whatever, you can do whatever. If you don't really take action towards it, you're not really gonna have any results, right? So that's a classic, right? Oh yeah, we're getting the newsletter, but
Yeah.
oh, this is our agent, by the way, right?
Yeah. I felt so bad for him though. I was like, oh my gosh, that's terrible, but that's just what happened. So
yeah, that's golden. Well, Wendy, Rich-Soto, Jenny Castillo, Alan Rosenberg, guys, thank you so much for that, with your time, your wisdom, participation. Stay busy, healthy, and we'll see you other guys. Thank you so much.
thanks, Meny.
Yeah,
Bye,
thank
everybody.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.